A man is walking with a woman when he sees the maid, then starts kissing her. The woman then says the man was an idiot and leaves after she leaves. The man tells the maid to go back to work and then leaves. The maid then doesn't understand what had happened in that place. Later, the maid enters a room and then sees the woman. The woman then says that she had a question for the maid and asks what relationship she had with the man. She then says that she had known the man for a long time and that even so, he had never said anything about her before. She then asks what they had and then the maid would tell her, but at that moment, the man arrives and then kisses the maid on the face. He then asks what the woman was talking about with the maid and then the woman asks, what is the relationship between the two? He says she was his girlfriend and this leaves the woman very surprised. The woman then says that he couldn't do that, because that woman was the company's employee and that she worked cleaning. He then asks what would be the problem with him dating the maid and then the woman said that she wasn't enough of a woman for him. She says that she was woman enough for the man and then this surprises the maid. The woman then says that she was the man's ex-wife and says that the maid didn't know that yet. The man then asks her to calm down and says he would explain things to her so she can finally understand. The man then says that, although he is dating the woman, she would start at the company working in the cleaning department. The woman says she would soon be fired, but he says that wouldn't happen. She then says that she wouldn't mind that, as she also had a new boyfriend. She says that, in fact, she was already engaged and that she would soon marry him. She then says that she wanted to arrange a day so that the man could meet his fiancée and that they could have something to eat together. The man then says that he was going to meet his ex-wife and that his girlfriend would also be there. The woman then says that she would see if the maid had the courage to show up on a date where she was not wanted. At that moment, the man apologizes to the maid and says he didn't mean to do that to her. She then asks what was happening there and the man says that he had invented that story so that his ex-wife would think that he was also in a relationship, since she had a new fiancé and he didn't want to leave her. To think he was alone. He then asks for the maid's help and says that he really needed her help. She then agrees and says that she could help him, but that she wanted some change. He then thinks about what he could give her in return and asks her what she wanted. She then said that she wanted many things, but at that moment she wanted him to give her a promotion. He said he couldn't do that, as she would need to be qualified to be promoted and, at the very least, have worked in that role before. He asks if she already had those things, but she says no. However, since the man was wanting help from her, he would have to help her too and he could teach her what he knew. He then says that the situation was complicated, then the maid says that the man wouldn't help her, so she wouldn't help him either. He then asks her to wait and says that he would talk to the company's shareholders and that he would try to get her a promotion. She then asks if he was really telling the truth and he promises her that he would try to get her approval. She then said that she would help him, but that she didn't have clothes to go to an event like that. He says that it wasn't a problem, as she could leave her job at that moment, go to the mall to buy clothes, but she said that he didn't understand what she was saying. She says the man should have known she wasn't paid enough to buy that kind of clothes. The man then realizes that she was telling the truth and then says that he would help her. In the parking lot, he meets and then the man says that she looked very beautiful in those clothes. She then says that she liked the clothes more than those shoes, it was very uncomfortable. He then starts laughing and says she was very funny. At that moment, the man says that they needed to get to know each other a little better, as he didn't want to arrive at the meeting and end up realizing that he didn't know anything about the maid. She is a little surprised by that, and then the man says that it was just so they could speed up the story of them being boyfriends, as he didn't know anything about the maid and that he needed to know some things about her. She then says that she didn't have much to say about her life and then begins to tell her story. She says that her father had died, but in fact she didn't know if he really died, because one day he left home and never came back. She then says that she lived with her mother, but that she had a boyfriend that she didn't like and that, because of that, she ended up leaving home. She said that after that, she ended up going to an orphanage and that after some time, her aunt decided to try to rescue her and that after that she went to live with her. She said that it was not a good experience, because her aunt also had a boyfriend that she didn't like and that this boyfriend ended up abusing her and that she then decided to leave her aunt's house. She said that this was her story, that although she didn't achieve much, she worked hard to get to where she was and that she wanted to achieve much more. The man then says that her story was very sad and that she could no longer believe that their stories were very similar. She said that was a lie, as the man should have been born very rich, but he said that was not true, as he had to work hard to get where he was. He says his parents died when he was a child and he had to live on the street. He says that he even ate food from the trash to survive, but that he worked hard to get where he was and that he was proud of it. He says that, because of all the money he had, it was very difficult to find someone to be with him, as even his ex-wife was a gold digger who was only with him because of his money. She then asks if they could go and he says yes. He says that on the way they could talk more to get to know each other better. And then they leave. At the restaurant, the woman was with her fiancé and then they arrive. They then sit at the table together, and then the woman says that the maid had actually gone to the meeting. The maid then says that she needed to support her boyfriend and so she wasn't happy about that. The woman then tells her fiancé to greet them both, then they greet the fiancé and then apologizes to them and says that he needed to resolve an urgent work matter and that they could talk soon. The woman then says that her fiancé was like that because he was very busy and was always in meetings. At that moment, he says that someone was calling and that he needed to answer it and then he leaves the table. He then starts talking to the person on the phone and says that he needed those documents at that moment. At that moment, the woman goes to him and tells him to get off the phone and talk to them. The groom said he couldn't do that because he needed to resolve an important matter at work, but the woman says they were going out together and he needed to talk to them. The maid then asks if that was the woman's boyfriend and then she said that that was her fiancé. The woman then says that she was surprised that the maid went to the meeting, but she said that she had already said that she would support her boyfriend in that. At that moment, the woman tells her fiancé that he should stop using the phone and pay attention to her, as she needed to pay attention to him at that moment. He then says he couldn't do that, as he needed to resolve an important matter. He then apologizes to the man and says that he wasn't joking there, as the matter was serious. She then asks if he would spend the whole day resolving work matters and then he starts shouting saying yes. He then gets up and says that he didn't want to be around her anymore and then apologizes to both of them, but says that he couldn't be around her anymore, because she was unbearable. At that moment, the maid says that they could leave if the woman didn't mind, but the woman tells the woman that she didn't need to stay there, but that she wanted to talk to the man and then she could leave. The man then says that if she left, he would too. He didn't have any secrets to hide from his girlfriend. At that moment, the woman starts to say that she needed to talk to the man and then says that she needed to resume their relationship. The man says she was going crazy because he would never have a relationship with her again. My wife then said that she loved the man very much more. He says she was just trying to trick him again. He asks what she was talking about, but she says she loved him. He says that there was nothing left between them, but the woman says that they had created a very beautiful story together and that that story still existed. He asks if she wanted to go to dinner with him, so they can forget what happened there. He asked her what she thought about it, and then the maid says she thought it was a good idea. He is then very happy with that and the maid says that she also really enjoyed spending time with him.